Good evening, everyone. The May 6, 2024 legislative session of the Anne Arundel County Council is called to order. Please ensure all phones and electronic devices are turned to silent. We will now enjoy the invocation led by Mr. Volke.
Please rise. Please pray in a manner consistent with your faith as I pray in a manner consistent with mine. Father God, thank you for this time that we have to gather together as a body to do the people's work for Anne Arundel County. We pray that you will bless us with wisdom, that you will give us courage to do the right things, that you will give us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we speak. And we pray that with all of the decisions that we make, that we keep in mind the impact they have on the community and on the people that we are elected to serve and represent. Give us gentle spirits and give us kind hearts as we discuss these matters with one another, and allow us to go forward in a way that is pleasing to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now have an annual update presentation from S&B & Company for the county's ACFR audit and single audit. Madam Auditor, you have the floor.
I'm Michelle Bolaire, County Auditor. Section 311 of the County Charter requires that the County Auditor submit a complete financial audit for the preceding fiscal year. This audit for fiscal year 2023 was performed by S&B & Company. S&B & Company also performed other financial audit services for the county, including the single audit. Bill Seymour is here tonight to discuss the results of these audits.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Seymour. I'm the engagement partner with S&B & Company, and this represents our required communications at the conclusion of an audit with those charged with governance. I'm going to walk through our presentation that we have. Please feel free to stop me with any questions that you may have. Whoops. Okay. So the scope of services, we were engaged to perform an audit of the June 30, 2023 financial statements, performance of the Uniform Guidance Single Audit, audit of the June 30, 2023 OPEB Trust financial statements, an audit of the 911 revenues and expenditures schedule, certain agreed upon procedures related to landfill, review of the Uniform Financial Report, preparation of the data collection form, as well as a full review of the financial statements prepared by management, and then working with management on a year-round basis as items happen. We've issued an unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion on the financial statements. We issued an unmodified opinion on compliance. However, we had an adverse or a did not comply opinion related to the workforce cluster program, and I'll touch on that in a moment. We issued an unmodified opinion on the OPEB trust statements, an unmodified opinion on the 911 revenues and expenditure schedule. We noted no findings in the landfill agreed upon procedures. We discovered no instances of fraud. I would caution our audit is not a fraud audit. That would be different in scope. However, professional standards require that we look for fraud, ask questions for fraud, test items that we do in the normal course. And through those procedures, we did not note any instances. Because of the adverse opinion related to the WEO cluster, we did have a material weakness over compliance. We did receive the full cooperation from management. And then during the course of this year, management adopted GASB 96 subscription-based IT arrangements similar to lease accounting, which required the recordation of an approximate $14 million liability, as well as an approximate $14 million intangible asset. This is a pictorial of our audit approach. The idea behind this is how we gain sufficient audit evidence to be able to issue that unmodified opinion. Through this process, we look for where the potential of what could go wrong, where the risks of material misstatements, how management has designed and operated controls to mitigate those risks through performance of certain analytical procedures, substantive procedures, and then audit standard required items. And through that process, we were able to garner sufficient audit evidence to be able to issue the unmodified opinion. We look at controls at two levels. One is at the control environment following the COSO model of internal controls. That is the 5 interrelated components of the control environment: risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring. And you can see in all cases our assessment was effective. Diving down a little bit deeper, looking at key processes and the underlying functions: treasury, cash, investments, debt, estimation, financial reporting, revenue, all of those that we had deemed effective. Expenditures, HR and payroll, fixed assets, and IT were all considered effective. Grant compliance, as I mentioned, we had findings, which I'm going to touch on in the next slide. We audited, as part of the single audit, 7 major programs, which approximated about $62 million. Of our total federal awards were $62 million. We tested $45 million, or approximately 63% of those. The county qualified as a low-risk auditee, which means that the minimum that we would have been required to test was 20%, so we were well in excess of that. As I mentioned earlier, the overall unmodified opinion on compliance, with the exception of the WEO cluster, related to subrecipient monitoring, where there wasn't sufficient evidence for us to determine that those subrecipient monitoring actually occurred. We had other, what we would term, more minor findings related to the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, or FFATA for short, which is where governments are required to put into the FFATA system that the federal government maintains what were grants that were passed through. That didn't occur. And then we have one other one where there was missing required language in a contract that was required. Either of those findings we didn't think were significant. The overall compliance was there. The remainder of our presentation goes through our specific required communications. This is our opportunity to chat with you if we had issues in the accounting policies, the adoption of accounting policies, the quality of that. If there were items that were just barely acceptable from being conservative or aggressive, we really have no items of that to bring to your attention. We had one adjustment on the 911 report that was missed for approximately $1.9 million. On the overall financial statements, we had no adjustments that were required. As I mentioned earlier, the one material weakness related to the WEO cluster, and then no disagreements with management, no serious difficulties, no other items that we would be required to bring to your attention. And I will stop there and take any questions.
I don't see any questions at this time. Do we have any questions? You may proceed.
That's it.
Okay. No, I did. I was going to ask the audit, Madam Chair. With respect to, I know I saw the email in reference to the topics, but I guess in your opinion and in layman's term, how are we doing as a county when it comes to the auditability? I know he gave his perception, but as the county auditor, what is your feelings about?
I think that, we continue to have a good working relationship between us and SB and Company and SB and Company and the departments. That's a really difficult question to answer because in my audit role, we're doing performance audits. And when we're talking about the financial statement audits, the materiality threshold is significantly different. Really.
Yeah, just echoing off of that, a couple of things. The county has won the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate in Excellence in Financial Reporting, which generally requires that the statements be issued within 6 months after year end. And if you look at the complicated nature of the county, getting all of that information together, giving us sufficient time to be able to for us to be able to obtain sufficient audit evidence to be able to issue that opinion is quite the task to make happen. There are, I can tell you without naming names, I still have audits going on from last year for other government organizations. Still as a result of kind of post-pandemic, the challenges with the additional funding that was received, the required reporting, the required compliance. You know, it's great to get additional money to do additional items, but with that comes additional responsibility, and there isn't additional resources that were added for that. So from that perspective, I think that the county did quite well, and would echo the county auditor's sentiment about the relationship. We feel we have an open relationship. We can, management talks to us about issues. We're able to put items on the table. It's not a contentious item, and we work through it accordingly.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
I came up with the question. Thank you. Are you going to touch more on the WIOA cluster and the findings there, or have we covered that in full in what you're going to present?
Yeah, so I mentioned it kind of at a high level.
Yeah.
Effectively, one of the requirements is that cluster, the funds are passed through to what's termed a subrecipient grantee. And the way that the rules are written is that the federal government expects the primary grantee, the county in this case, really to act in the federal government's shoes. Sure. Which requires really three parts to occur for subrecipient monitoring. One is a risk assessment of the grantee, then the actual monitoring at two levels, and this is the second and the third. One is on the actual spend, but then what are the monitoring that you're doing that was a direct result of the risk assessment. So for instance, as just a general example, if you went through and said, oh, this organization is doing, you know, we feel like we have a risk that they wouldn't perform, then throughout the year, you're monitoring to determine whether or not, and we were not provided the documentation to show that the risk assessment and then the performance monitoring occurred. And as a result of that, from an audit perspective, then that puts us in a position where we have to issue what's termed a does not comply opinion on that program specifically. The other programs that were tested all had a clean opinion with it.
Can I follow up?
You may.
Thank you. In this county, what department or what entity within the county was the responsible entity for supervising these sub-level grants? Was it Office of Finance? Was it the county exec's office? Was it budget? Who was in charge of the administration of the grant money?
So I believe that for the subrecipient monitoring portion was out of the Office of Finance in this case, and that there was our understanding is that there was some turnover that occurred that, you know, we can't say whether or not that was the reason, but that could have been a contributing factor.
Can I follow up again? Thank you. And so with the risk assessment, you were not able to see what, if any, risk assessment the county did in advance of providing the grants. You weren't able to see documentation on what follow-up of the spend the county was monitoring. You didn't have that information.
Correct.
And that's something that in other places in the county you found did exist?
Well, each program is kind of its own, so they don't always have the same testing requirements.
Okay.
So you have some programs where the county is the primary spender of funds, and so there is no subrecipient that would occur. But in other areas, yes, it was found. In years past, we've also been able to be satisfied with the evidence to that. Just this year, it wasn't made available.
And what was the amount of money that was, I don't want to use any kind of inflammatory term for it, but just the amount of money that you could not find the proper controls over?
Well, this is only one section of 13 compliance requirements that are there. The total amount award that was spent was about $4.6 million.
Okay.
But if you will, from a testing perspective, we still were able to satisfy ourselves that there was adequate support for the expenditures that were made. So the documentation of the actual cash leaving and the support was there. It was just this additional level of monitoring that you're required to do that wasn't there. And because the pass-through amount was a significant portion of the overall grant, then that when you are in a financial statement audit, we get more judgment. This becomes kind of a yes/no type of item.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on with the rest of our business meeting this evening. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The Chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4412.
Thank you. Before we open our discussions and public hearings, I would like to remind everyone in attendance, whether testifying or as a member of the audience, that we must maintain decorum at all times within these chambers. We will now open our invitation to audience. This is an opportunity to speak briefly on any subject not included on the printed agenda. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received 4 pieces of written testimony, which was shared with the Council, posted to the website, and added to the record.
Thank you. We will now call on individuals who signed up ahead of the meeting. When your name is called, please come up to the table. I will ask you to state your name and address before making your remarks. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. We did have 6 individuals sign up in advance. We have 6 seats in front of me. I'm going to call each of you. Mr. David Gonzalez, Jessica Kuntz, Jamie Harris, Jonathan Sloan, Dorothy Guy, and David Phillips. And this is for testimony not on the printed agenda this evening. Okay, so we have 1 individual here or coming up not on this list. Okay. Ms. Guy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to address the council tonight in an overall concern that I have regarding the fiscal notes that have been published on the Region 7 bills. The fiscal notes show no fiscal impact from the zoning plans that have been put forth. And in my view, this is totally wrong, and I would like to see the council request its county budget officer to review the fiscal notes on these bills and to review the fiscal notes that the budget officer will be required to prepare for the other region plans. And my viewpoint here is that whenever you have additional development of an area, there are always fiscal impacts on the county from that development. Those impacts are for increased public infrastructure that's needed and increased public services that are needed. This county council is very pro-development, and you know that these region plans that have been presented so far and are coming up will cause the county to have additional expenditures. I also note that Councilwoman Picard, you noted in one instance that you would forgive water and sewer hookup fees to developers if they presented greater than 10% units for low income. Why should you reduce developer fees when you have all kinds of legislation out on the table that will increase taxes and fees to every individual citizen in Anne Arundel County? It's extremely unfair to pass developer costs on to the taxpayers of Anne Arundel County. And this council needs to reconsider what it's doing and the direction it's moving Anne Arundel County in. You're basically ruining Anne Arundel County by overdeveloping it.
Thank you, Ms. Guy. If there's anyone else here who wishes to speak, please come up to the table, state your name and address, and the topic before your remarks. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. And again, this is for items not appearing on the written agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Mueller?
Yes, I'm Gary Mueller. After tonight, I will be living in Arundel City, formerly known as Jessup. My concern is about the misinformation you've been received from OPZ over the last few meetings, but I'm more concerned about what you have not been told. I don't believe you received the full reports from citizens outreach and listening sessions or the study by the RKO report that was done, and in addition, the multiple surveys done by Anne Arundel Community College, and the online surveys that were conducted during Plan 2040 and the region plan in Jessup. These reports are all consistent that the citizens in Anne Arundel County don't want more development, don't want traffic increases and higher densities. If you have not read these reports, then I hope you ask OPZ ask OPZ, your citizens are asking why they are being ignored when they come to the council meetings. We can't get people from Jessup because what's the use of going down if you're ignored every 10 years you come down here? So that's my concern. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Julie Johnson, PO Box 66. Oh, okay, now. Julie Johnson, PO Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. Tonight, in recognition of Ms. Rodvian's statement that, what we need to be doing at this point with the zoning is at least look at, the fact that here are these other groups coming along, and we're responsible for trying to give them some advice from what we experienced. So what I did is I brought along a few maps that, somehow never made it into the records anyplace else. This is a topographic map of the area that includes Ridgely Avenue and all of the brouhaha, and it includes Mr. Volke's, amendments. Well, it doesn't actually include it, but it includes the parcels. And he's smiling now, but boy, is he going to throw spit wads at me later. Because what happens is that when you look at the topo, with these two additional properties, the slope plunges. Here at the top of those properties, it's 75 feet is the elevation. You go down the hill and down Willow Road, and you're down to 50. Then you plunge down through the stormwater drain, and you hit the stormwater sediment ponds, and they start at 30, because you go from 50 to 30, and then down to 20, and then you go under the road. And this other plat that I got from the county shows some of the State Highway Administration plats, and some of that water winds up not only in my backyard and my neighbors' backyards, but then it goes under Row Boulevard and dumps into Weems Creek. And the stormwater management costs are really going to be staggering. And at no point during any of the discussion was there any question about stormwater management and so on, and I only got one?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Oh, dear. Well, would you like to have it, Madam Chair?
Would I like your map?
Yes, ma'am. For the record?
If you'd like to donate it to the county council, Ms. Kaylee Schultz will take it here for you. Thank you.
Thank you. But I've got other stuff.
This panel is dismissed.
I'll have to come.
At this time, the invitation to audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? Okay. May I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution, or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So move.
Is there a second?
Broadbent, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of May 1st, 2024.
The county council meeting was called to order by Chair Pickard at 11:03 a.m. It was opened with the invocation given by Ms. Pickard and also followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The meeting was held in the county council chambers in Annapolis, Maryland.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 1st, 2024?
So move.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The minutes of May 1st, 2024 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 4924, an ordinance concerning personnel, employee retirement savings plan, contractual school health employees. Bill number 5024, an ordinance concerning pensions, deferred retirement option program, term of participation period. Bill number 5124, an ordinance concerning personnel, classification and pay plans, classified service and exempt service, public ethics, financial disclosure. Bill number 5224, an ordinance concerning budget and finance, grants, special revenue fund, conditional appropriations of grants.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 1624, resolution approving the appointment of a Severn River Commission member. Resolution number 1724, resolution reappointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission. Resolution number 1824, resolution nominating a member to serve on the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission. Resolution number 1924, resolution nominating 2 members to serve on the Anne Arundel County Community Reinvestment and Repair Commission. Resolution number 2024, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to require that all meetings and legislative sessions of the County Council comply with the Maryland Open Meetings Act. Resolution number 2124, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to provide for the position and duties of the Legislative Council to the County Council. Resolution number 2224, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to allow the County Council to create and appoint standing committees, to require meetings of standing committees to comply with the Maryland Open Meetings Act, and to require votes of the council and any standing committees to be recorded in the County Council Journal.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 16-24.
Bill number 1624, an ordinance concerning zoning, uses, food service facilities, outdoor seating related to food and beverage service.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table are Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. We've discussed this bill a couple times at prior council meetings and at a prior work session. It's to allow certain food service facilities to continue to utilize outdoor seating related to food and beverage services under the executive orders and emergency legislation that was passed starting in May of 2020 regarding the COVID restrictions. We're happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion from my colleagues on Bill 1624 at this time? Seeing none, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 16-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received 10 pieces of written testimony, which was shared with the council, posted to the website, and added to the record.
We did have 3 people signed up ahead of time. I have Mr. David Gonzalez, Nancy Guy, Catherine Taylor. You may all come to the table at this time. State your name and address for the record. Ms. Guy?
Hi, my name is Nancy Guy, 605 North Biscuit Road. I strongly oppose this bill, for it provides no relief to its residents due to the noise, the hour of operation, rests within the neighborhood, and the odors for which are given off.
Move closer, please.
From eating outside. The disruption of a peaceful neighbor, elderly, not getting their nightly rest, and children sleeping disrupted from the noise given off from businesses is not the best interest of the community and its residents. It only feeds into the business owners and their guests. The outdoor dining restriction should be reinstated. Think about it. If you live next to a business that has outdoor seating, can you have guests with loud noise, odor issues, etc., till way hours of the morning? Would you want to live with them? I don't think so. So why should they? Give back to the community for which gave so much before COVID. Stop feeding into the business owners and start looking into helping your residents for which you're supposed to be serving. I respectfully request that you oppose Bill 1624. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Taylor, Pasadena. I oppose the bill unless amended to include a setback provision protecting residents in residentially zoned neighborhoods. I was stationed in Texas for 15 years where I lived on 24 acres. My driveway was a quarter-mile long, and our little town was thrilled when a Subway franchise arrived because the 30-minute drive to buy a deli sandwich would be cut in half. I know what it is like to live on acreage in rural areas and what it is like to live in a population-dense area, which I do now. Both communities deserve to have their needs respected and should never be pitted against each other in a false win-lose choice. Ethan Hunt has stated that the establishments that Representative Ledbetter is concerned about would be expected to be approved through the zoning variance process, which is a process routinely used throughout the county. If the council's goal is to minimize the commercial establishments who need to use the variance process to gain approval for the continuation of their outdoor seating post-COVID and protect the residents in our population-dense county areas, then consider revising the setback to exclude residential low density, or make the setback measured to the house rather than the residential property line. And as an additional safety net, include that if the establishment otherwise qualifies under this bill and a zoning variance has been requested of OPZ relating to the residential setback, delay the effective date for just that group and allow the zoning variance process to be completed. Nobody wants a noise nuisance within earshot of their home or the streets of their residential neighborhood to be forced to handle overflow commercial parking because the seating capacity of the bar or restaurant has increased. Putting the peace and quiet of population-dense residential neighborhoods at risk to protect a very small number of rural bars or restaurants from having to use a very routine zoning variance process is not a reasonable approach. Win-win solutions are possible and the only way to successfully manage a county with both types of communities present.
Thank you. This panel is dismissed. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on Bill 1624 at this time? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 16-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 16-24.
Bill number 1624, an ordinance concerning zoning, uses, food service facilities, outdoor seating related to food and beverage service.
Is there any further discussion with my colleagues on Bill 16-24? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 16-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rabian.
No.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. Bill number 1624 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 17-24.
Bill number 1724, an ordinance concerning zoning, adult independent dwelling units.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table are Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. This bill was discussed at the last Monday council meeting 3 weeks ago, and at a prior work session. As we explained earlier, this bill is merely to update the bulk regulations for adult independent dwelling units, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the sponsor of the administration at this time? Seeing none, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill 17-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any pieces of testimony.
We have had no one sign up ahead of time. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to come forward at this time to give testimony on Bill 17-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 17-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 17-24.
Bill number 1724, an ordinance concerning zoning adult independent dwelling units.
Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 17-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodbian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 1724 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 22-24.
Bill number 2224, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, adequate school facilities, school utilization chart.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunter for the administration. With me, I have Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, Kyle Roof from the Board of Education, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. The purpose of this legislation is to approve the school utilization chart, which has been updated by the Planning and Zoning Officer based on 2025 projected enrollment. We did amend this bill at the last council hearing to substitute the chart to include an explanatory footnote. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions at this time for the administration? Seeing none, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 22-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any pieces of testimony.
We did have one individual sign up ahead of time, Mr. David Gonzalez. He has not come forward yet. Is there anyone in the audience wanting to testify on Bill 22-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 22-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 22-24.
Bill number 2224, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, adequate school facilities, school utilization chart.
Ms. Rodbian?
Thank you. Since I know this was about to be our opportunity to discuss, I really just wanted to say thank you to the administration for picking up on a suggestion that I brought forward at the work session to add a footnote to explain a little bit more about the numbers and how they're going to change, because we have several schools opening in the coming school year. So I don't even know who did that. Thank you for bringing that amendment forward, and I think it makes this a much more valuable tool.
Look forward to keep working on the school utilization chart. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 22-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodbian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 2224 has passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 24-24.
Bill number 2424, an ordinance concerning current expense budget, third quarter fund transfer, and supplementary appropriations.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Stephen Thoreau from the Budget Office, Crystal McGill-Belk from the Office of Transportation, Alex Backey and Aaron Day from the Department of Public Works, Matt Stansky from the Board of Education, Chris Klein from Department of Detention, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. This bill transfers appropriations of funds between certain offices, departments, institutions, boards, commissions, and other agencies in the general fund and makes supplementary appropriations from unanticipated revenues to the grant special revenue fund for the current fiscal year. We do have one administration amendment, which we're happy to discuss at the appropriate time. I'm not sure if Stephen has anything else he wants to add, but otherwise we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the administration at this time on Bill 24-24? Seeing none, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill 24-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any pieces of testimony.
I do not have anyone signed up in advance to testify on this bill. Is there anyone in the audience at this time who would like to come forward to testify on Bill 24-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 24-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 24-24.
Bill number 2424, an ordinance concerning current expense budget, third quarter fund transfer, and supplementary appropriations.
I'm going to look to my right and my left. I don't see any lights. So, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 24. Oh, you have an amendment. God, I was on a roll. We were really moving. Dang. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment removes the supplemental appropriation to the Board of Education.
Mr. Hunt, this is your amendment. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment removes $5 million from a transfer to the Board of Education. I'll turn it over to Stephen and Mr. Stansky to explain more.
Good morning, Council. Stephen True from the Budget Office. So we're moving the $5 million for the Board of Education for 3 reasons. On the county side, as we started putting together our fourth quarter transfer bill that will be in front of this council, I think at the next council meeting, it's a little tighter than we anticipated, so we wanted to remove that back from the Board of Education. In speaking with the Board of Education, and Mr. Stansky will hopefully back me up here on the stand, it's not an emergency, so the Board of Education does not need this funding in FY24 in order to meet their obligations. So in looking forward, I believe that this money will be available when we close the books for fiscal year 24, but I'd rather take care of fiscal year 24 problems while we have funding before taking care of something that is a future problem with the Board of Education. So that's really the reason to remove this amendment for right now. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Stansky if he's got any comments.
Oh, I was close to getting a free $5 million, but no, yeah, just talk to Mr. Through and yeah, concur. Obviously, we'll have a much more in-depth discussion about the healthcare fund next Monday. But, you know, for fiscal 24, the healthcare fund with future transfers that the board will be voting on next week and be in front of this council, the fund is in good shape in fiscal 24. It's the out years that we're concerned about. So,
is there a motion to adopt amendment number 1?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second? Does anyone have any questions about amendment number 1? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do you think you're going to be asking for $5 million, or will you be asking for more in the fourth quarter transfer? Or do you think you're not going to need it at all because you're going to build it into the budget, and we'll discuss that Monday?
So we're not going to be asking the county for any additional revenue in the fourth quarter.
Gotcha.
We will be transferring from existing appropriation.
Okay. So then this is $5 million that'll continue to sit as fund balance for budget purposes?
Stephen Through from the Budget Office. So yes, this $5 million will remain on the county side for fiscal year 24. We will be deploying a lot of that in our fourth quarter transfer within the county, and you'll see that when it comes before you.
I thought we had an extra $5 million already now.
I think at the end of the day we will, but I think
Okay.
it's a little tighter right now.
Okay.
We're looking to close the fiscal year out.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Rodby.
Thank you. So we've, because the budget has been introduced, we've been hearing plenty from individuals in the school system concerned about their increased, or what may be an increased requirement to contribute to their healthcare fund. And so I was very much looking forward to this extra $5 million being deployed in that way. So I don't know if you're able to give any indication that if this $5 million is still available, would you anticipate using it in that same fashion that you had, suggested it would be used in our third quarter transfer?
So are you asking me if the county government had an additional $5 million in fiscal '24, would I like it to go to the healthcare fund? Is that the question?
Sure.
Yeah, the answer would be yes.
Okay, so that would be a priority?
Yeah, and I think, right, the idea here, both with our internal transfer and the additional county request, was to sort of buy us time as we solve the long-term issue with the healthcare fund, to ensure we can get revenues and expenditures aligned.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 to Bill 2424 has been adopted.
Thank you. And Bill number 2424, as amended, will be heard on May 20, 2024. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 2524.
Bill number 2524, an ordinance concerning construction and property maintenance codes and supplements.
This is an administration bill. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Andrew McCara. So we discussed this bill at the last work session. What it does is it adopts and modifies the 9 following construction codes and makes certain amendments and supplements to them. It's the 2021 International Building Code, the 2021 International Residential Code for 1 and 2 family dwellings, the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, 2021 International Existing Building Code, 2021 International Fuel Gas Code, 2021 International Plumbing Code, 2021 International Mechanical Code, and the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, as well as the National Electric Code 2020 edition. And Mr. McCara has an encyclopedic knowledge of all of these, and I'm sure can answer any questions better than I can.
Are there any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you. I apologize because I may have asked this before and simply do not remember the answer, but we have been discussing with respect to the accessory dwelling unit law that the council passed last year, possible places in the building code that might help facilitate and ease projects as they go through the process. Are any of the changes in here ones that you would think could be helpful to facilitating and easing that process for folks that would like to build ADUs?
Yep, Andrew McCarron, Department of Inspections and Permits. There's some discussion before about Appendix Q in the residential code, now called Appendix AQ. That's for tiny homes, which would be less, 4,000 square feet or less, which an ADU can be, and it kind of eases some requirements about, lofts. You think a tiny house has a loft, and you get there by a ladder, so you don't have to build a full staircase, for example. So that is proposed to be adopted in this legislation, which would help ADUs be built, I believe.
So AQ is adopted as part of this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm such a fish out of water talking about this, so I appreciate your helping me understand it.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you. Did you say 4,000 square feet?
400. Sorry. All right. I might have. I apologize.
I was like, tiny house.
Times have changed. 4,000 is a tiny house these days.
That's a tiny house to some people.
It's different. This is different. May I?
You may.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. McCara and also Mr. Wiedemeyer, who's not here. They did take a call from me over the last week based on a conversation I had with a constituent who was concerned about the provisions in this bill that require that any permits be pulled by someone who is in the trades. And they wanted to discuss the option of possibly allowing homeowners to be able to pull their own permits and then have that work inspected by the county. I did not put that amendment in. I just want the record to be clear, but I do appreciate the Office of Inspections and Permits being open to conversations about what we might be able to do on that in the future. So I just want to thank them for that. I also wanted to ask you, this is just a weird thing that caught my eye. Sump pumps have to be inside the house. Were you having a problem with sump pumps outside the house?
Yep, Andrew McCarron, Department of Inspections and Permits.
I mean, it's a serious question. Like, it's in the legislation.
Yeah, we've had some homes being built where they were putting sump pumps in areaways or egress window wells. And of course, when you put them outside, water and pipes can freeze when they're not inside. So it seems like a silly clarification, but we just wanted to clarify it.
Makes sense. All right, thank you.
Seeing no other questions from my colleagues, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill 25-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received one piece of written testimony that was shared with the council, posted to the website, and added to the record.
Thank you. I do not have anyone signed up in advance to speak on Bill 25-24. Is there anyone here in the audience wanting to come forward to speak on Bill 25-24 at this time? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill number 25-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 25-24.
Bill number 2524, an ordinance concerning construction and property maintenance codes and supplements.
Oh, Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to wait until after public testimony. Like Mr. Volke, we had talked about potentially amending a section related to construction of fences. Not going to do it at this time, obviously, but I have to say, anyone who has looked at our building code, it is absolutely daunting to try to understand if you're doing even the smallest thing on your own property. The fact that you have it memorized and can recite it on command is pretty impressive, so thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you, I appreciate it, but I don't have it memorized, so don't hold me to that, anybody.
Seeing no other comments from my colleagues, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 25-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 2524 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 32-24.
Bill number 32-24, an emergency ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, uses and structures, temporary uses, outdoor dining areas.
Ms. Ledbetter, this is your bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Due to the nature of the legislative process, the bill that we passed earlier this evening to make the temporary dining permanent dining, this emergency ordinance would have expired before the bill we just passed became law, creating an awkward limbo zone. So the emergency ordinance tonight is introduced to make sure that we don't have that awkward limbo. Motion to adopt.
Mr. Hunt, does the administration have any comments on Bill 32-24?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. I have Lynn Miller from OPZ and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. I appreciate the council member putting this in so we don't have a 10 or 12-day gap between the expiration of the last bill and the effective date of the one that was just passed by the council. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of my colleagues at this time? We'll now open the public hearing on Bill 32-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any pieces of testimony.
We do not have anyone signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience at this time that would like to come forward to speak on Bill number 32-24? Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill 32-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 32-24.
Bill number 32-24, an emergency ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, uses and structures, temporary uses, outdoor dining areas.
Any further discussion? We're ready to vote. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 32-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 32-24 has passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution number 15-24.
Resolution number 15-24, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to permit the county council to increase the minimum value of purchases and contracts subject to a simplified competitive procurement process from greater than $5,000 to greater than $10,000, and increase the minimum value of purchases that are required to be published on the county website from $5,000 or greater to greater than $10,000.
This is an administration resolution. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Hannah Dyer, Catrice Parsons from Purchasing, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. So as explained, this proposes an amendment to the charter to increase the minimum value on purchases and contracts subject to simplified competitive procurement from $5,000 to $10,000. Just for background for the council, during the last fiscal year in FY23, purchasing had a total of 292 procurements that were between this $5,000 and $10,000 threshold. The small procurements had a total value of $2 million and represented 0.54% of the county's overall transaction value in FY23. I'll turn it over to Ms. Dyer if she has anything additional she wants to add.
Thank you. So I'll just add that the reason for this proposed charter amendment is that increases in inflation have devalued the efficiencies gained through the micro procurement requirements, especially over the past 2 or 3 years, as you all know. So that's really the driving factor for updating this threshold in the charter.
Ms. Hummer.
So we're looking at 0.54% of the budget. Would it be prudent to even remove this requirement from the charter and just put it in the code rather than have an amount this small that it's inefficient for government for this? What's the thoughts on that?
I think that's certainly something worth considering, whether taking that amount out of the specific amount out of the charter and just having it be something that's in the code and could be more easily updated. That certainly makes sense to us. This recommendation came out of a purchasing work group that met over the past several months. And so the recommendation from them was just to increase the amount in the charter from 5,000 to 10,000. But I think that certainly if the charter amendment were amended to just take the specific amount out entirely, that would still be in line with the recommendation of the work group.
May I ask another question?
Yes.
So this would, like you said, it's such a small amount, and with inflation, that even bumping it to 10,000, that's going to become a smaller thing, and that's to have to go through a charter amendment each time to raise that. So, but we could still put in the code that there's going to be specific purchasing requirements around, procurement things, but it doesn't have to be charter. So, could we, I'm not sure how to do this. Can we hold this resolution for a possibility for an amendment?
Well, first we're going to have a public hearing on the resolution, okay. But then if there's a appetite to hold, we can entertain that.
To look at it further. To see. Okay. So, I'm doing out of order.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm assuming on the low end, you said 292 transactions?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
You said 292 transactions?
Looking at fiscal 23, the number of transactions that fell
between 5 and 10 were about 292. On the low end, 5K, it's about $1.5 million. On the high end, double that, right? So somewhere around $1.5 to $2 million.
So the total value of those 292 transactions was $2 million?
Yeah, correct. I'm actually, actually leaning towards what Ms. Hummer had suggested, just because to have a competitive bid on, $5,000 or $5,500 is crazy, actually. But it is more expensive and time consuming to get those in. That could be one TV, literally. Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Nicer than I have. We'll now open the public hearing on Resolution 15-24. We have no one signed up in advance. Madam Secretary, do we have any online testimony?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
If there's anyone in the audience at this time that would like to come forward to speak on Resolution 15-24, you may do so at this time.
Hello, Mary Guy, 605 North Bestgate Road. I have not reviewed this particular resolution and bill in its entirety, but I think not providing information to the county residents, taxpayers, et cetera, does not promote transparency of the county council or the county government. And I encourage you all to maintain the $5,000 here, because it says increase the minimum value of purchases that are required to be published on the county website from $5,000 or greater to greater than $10,000. If I were paying the bill, I would want to know where my money's going, especially if it's less than $10,000. That's no small amount of funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other movement in the audience, the public hearing on Resolution 15-24 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 15-24.
Resolution number 15-24, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to permit the County Council to increase the minimum value of purchases and contracts subject to a simplified competitive procurement process from greater than $5,000 to greater than $10,000, and increase the minimum value of purchases that are required to be published on the county website from $5,000 or greater to greater than $10,000.
Thank you. And just as a matter of information, this is considered a resolution for the charter. So this, if this moved forward with a vote of 5 this evening, or after it's been potentially amended, it would send this to the ballot in November for the electorate to vote on. So this is not a decision we can make here amongst ourselves. A charter amendment is something that has to get voted on by the entire county voters. So with that, Mr. Volke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you explain what that means, that language about what needs to be posted on the website versus what doesn't, and what exactly that looks like from a procurement standpoint? My understanding is I think these are sole source bids, right? You can award these without having to go through a competitive bidding process, but if I'm wrong, make it clear for everybody in the room so they know what we're talking about.
So it is a little bit different than the sole source process, but I think I'll actually let our purchasing agent, Patrice, give a little of the background on the differences.
So anything that's currently anything under $5,000 or over $5,000 is put on the county website through a report that we do, and it encompasses like everything. So anything under, it is not a sole source. It's basically no competition. So you just go out and just purchase it from anywhere, like you were going out to a website or a retail store or anything like that. That is correct.
Can I follow up? Thank you. And so when you say you have to publish it and put it out there, so currently anything that is over $5,000, you're putting a report on the website that says we bought this from Office Depot in this amount of money, something like that.
Yes, there's currently a report that goes out on our website, on the purchasing website, that details all of those transactions.
Got it. And so we're talking about 0.5% of the county budget that would now just not be reported through a public report. There would still be tracking of this money, right?
Absolutely, and it's less than 0.5% of the total county budget. It's
Sure.
0.54% of what flows through the procurement office, which last year was $562 million, which is a quarter.
Out of a $2.1 billion budget. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hemmer.
Yes, I would just like to motion to hold this bill until May 20th, hold this resolution until May 20th.
Is there a second?
There is, but I was hoping to ask one last question before that. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Thank you. Just for the sake of clarity, if a member of the public really were interested in those purchases that fell under the limit, whether it were $5,000 or $10,000, that would still be accessible via the Maryland, like an MPIA request, Maryland Public Information Act request, correct?
That is correct.
So if someone really wanted to know, they could still give that information. It still would be accessible to the public. Thank you.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
And you're going to second?
I will second it.
We have a motion
Thank
and a
you.
second.
I was just gonna make a comment to piggyback, but I'll wait till you got a second already, so.
Yeah, how about we take a vote on the motion to hold Resolution 15-24 until May 20th? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to hold Resolution 1524 till May 20th has passed.
Make a statement. Also, just piggyback off of what Ms. Rodvian had mentioned, our amazing council members as well could be a conduit because we have an amazing auditor. So whenever there's any questions about utilization of resources in the county, council members can still gain access to those. So if you have questions as a citizen about something, please reach out to one of the 7 of us, because we too can be a conduit to get that information to the public. So just not trying to give us more homework, so I think we already have a lot of it. But
Actually, you are, yes.
just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of Bill number 6-24 as amended and Bill 7-24 as amended.
Bill number 6-24, an ordinance concerning General Development Plan, Region 2 Plan. Bill number 7-24, an ordinance concerning Comprehensive Zoning, Region 2.
Mr. Hunt, you have the floor when your team is assembled.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Christina Pompa, Mark Wildonger, and Cindy Carrier from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So Bill 624 and 724 deal with the General Development Plan and Comprehensive Rezoning for Region 2. We've been going through this process since February, and I believe tonight is the final night for a vote on these 2 bills. I will pass over to Ms. Pompa for some additional comments.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. Today is May 6, 2024, and on May 3, 2021, the County Council adopted Plan 2040, the county's general development plan. So from that time, it's been 3 years, and here we are today asking for adoption of 2 region plans and 2 comprehensive zoning bills. It has been a long process. I want to personally thank the team at OPZ, not just the people that you see here sitting at the table, but there are many other staff involved at bringing these plans and zoning forward. I would also like to thank the stakeholder advisory committees who met for months talking about the plans as well as the comprehensive zoning maps. I'd like to thank the Planning Advisory Board. And finally, I'd like to thank the County Council for working so hard with us on these bills, especially Ms. Rodvian, Ms. Hummer, and Mr. Smith. I think that the products are better because of the work that has been done, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope we're going to get a positive vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about Region 2 from my colleagues before we open the last public hearing on Bill 6 and Bill 7? All right. We'll now open the joint public hearing on Bill 624 and 724. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
We did not receive any testimony through the online testimony tool.
We do have one gentleman signed up this evening, but he has not come forward as of yet. Mr. David Gonzalez signed up ahead of time. I don't believe he's here this evening, but if there's anyone here who wants to come up at this time to speak on Bill 624 and 724, please come forward. We have 6 seats. We can fill them all. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Gary Muller from Arundel City, formerly Jessup, Maryland. After tonight, you are paving the way for hundreds of new families to move into Jessup over the opposition of quite a few people in Anne Arundel County. What I'd like to talk about is in 2004 small area plan, it called for expanding the Jessup Park on Race Road. It also called for a passive park that was been requested for at least 20 years. The 2000 plan and fourth plan also asked the county to purchase a lot between the JIA Hall and the school. Given the massive development you are about to approve in a few minutes, please support the community's request for these needed improvements to support the influx of all these new residents. Thank you. And like I said, it should have been included in the plan, Region 2 plan, but it was not. So please consider that for a future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bills 624 and 724 are now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of Bills 624 and 724.
Bill number 624, an ordinance concerning General Development Plan Region 2 Plan. Bill number 724, an ordinance concerning Comprehensive Zoning Region 2.
Mr. Smith?
I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
So for at least the portion that I was responsible for, that sliver of Jessup and Hanover, I do want to state for the record that over the last 3 years, the county has been in a process, as the planning officer, Ms. Christina, had just alluded to. My goal was not to litigate that whole process because it was a 3-year-long process. At least in my perception, was my job was to make sure that I created a final sort of review that mitigated any large impacts. Over the last, specifically to communities in Jessup and Hanover, because that was the portion that was in District 1 that I was impacted by. Well over 30, I want to calculate somewhere around 30-some properties were impacted by the amendments that I had voted on or produced over the last few months. All of those, except one, I believe, downzone property from what the county had proposed. They wanted to go from R5. I literally put everything back to R1 and even open space in some instances. Though we're facing a significant housing shortage throughout the county. So I'll own that one. I know there are some housing folks who may not like that decision I did, but I own it because it was in the best interest of the citizens in Jessup. Jessup writ large literally stayed almost exactly the same with these amendments. It went back to R1. We did not upzone. I don't think, especially in that northern cluster, there was no properties that I'm aware of that were upzoned to R5 or R10. They literally all retained or stayed R1. So I just want to be clear for the public. Jessup and that Hanover portion that I deliberately went to all of those families. Many are in this audience right here who wanted their property to stay what it was, R1, instead of going to R5 and R10 in some instances, but we restored it back. And I'm glad I did it because I do value the citizen input that came from this process as it should be. So I wanted to say that because, this whole journey through comp rezoning isn't going to end with this bill. There are other ones that are coming, different regions that are coming. And at least certainly I have, I know other council members have been responsive, and it's our job to do that. That's what I did. You can look at the map. I'm not selling you any bill of goods that is not, you can't go back and verify yourself, but there's more work to do. We're going to look at tightening up some other areas off of that corridor. After I spoke to some of the other community members for potential future impacts in that area, we're going to tighten it up as well. But as far as more development housing, as far as that Jessup piece of the area, that is not going to happen because we literally retained everything that was there over the last 3 years that was going to be increased. We put it back over the last few months. And so I'm glad we went through this process. I'm grateful for the citizen input and feedback. It was rewarding to go door to door to talk about these different properties. And hopefully over the next few months as we dive into other region team processes, you all from other different counties, or not counties, but other communities, will go through that process as well. And so thank you to the planning office and their team for being so patient with me, I should say, because there was some double duty that took place with, signs going to one home that already got picked up by another homeowner and so on and so forth. But yes, I'm grateful for driving and making sure all of that happened for those citizens. And so I'm just glad to see at least this piece, see its natural conclusion, and hopefully we can cement this and then move forward with the rest of the county. So thank you.
Ms. Hummer.
Yes, I want to thank OPZ for all their hard work on this. This plan, a portion of it was my district in the Laurel area. And one thing we do have that's in the small area plan that we're looking at, the region plan that we're looking at, is perhaps a transportation or mixed use overlay in the future as Laurel Racetrack evolves. But we don't have an exact timeline for that. So it'll be within the next years. But I think we've laid some good groundwork to move toward that when the time comes. And I encourage everybody, the next couple of years, the Preakness will be in Laurel. So you can come to the Laurel Racetrack, and I'm going to stay away because nobody's going to be able to drive on the roads but when it comes through. But for the next couple of years, the plan is that the Preakness will be over there, and then we'll see what we can do with the racetrack when it comes time. But thank you all to OPZ for all your hard work.
Any further comments? Mr. Volke?
Yeah, briefly. I do want to commend Mr. Smith, Ms. Hummer for the work they did, and I think the whole council for working on the signage requirement and trying to get some of those pieces corrected. Obviously, this was the first, along with Region 7, but these were the first two that this council had to tackle, and we did discover there were some procedural things that needed to be cleaned up to make this process better. It is always disappointing when you get to the end and you feel like people are frustrated with the whole process and what came out of it. I've been on that side before many times and have been disappointed by the outcome of legislation, even once you get it to the best place you can get it. So I understand that, I respect it. But I do want to say, I think that some of the concerns that the community raised and has repeatedly raised, Mr. Smith has tried to address, the council has tried to address by way of amendments and signage requirements and all that. Ms. Hummer has been responsive to that. So I hope that even though this may not be a perfect product, and even though there may be many people who are frustrated with parts of this, that you can at least see that we did listen, right? And we did try to do things that were requested. Maybe not everything. You certainly aren't going to walk away and be thrilled with all of it, but that's governing, right? Governing is, you have to try to balance competing interests, and that's what we up here do all the time. So I just want to make that point because I think, to Mr. Smith's point about what he did do and what he heard from the community, I just think that's something we all have to keep in mind, is there's never going to be a perfect piece of legislation.
All right, well, big night for long-range planning and the community. So this is our first region plan to get to this point. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodbian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 624 has passed.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 7-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodbian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 7-24 has passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the titles of Bills 8-24 as amended and Bill 9-24 as amended.
Bill number 8-24, an ordinance concerning General Development Plan, Region 7 Plan. Bill number 9-24, an ordinance concerning Comprehensive Zoning, Region 7.
This is an administration effort. Mr. Hunt, you and your team have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me, I have Christina Pompa and Cindy Carrier from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. Region 7, much like Region 2, is up for a final vote tonight, and Ms. Pompa has any other comments she would like to add?
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. Everything that I said before Bills 6 and 7 stands, except for the fact that I forgot to call out our partner agencies There are a lot of other staff in other departments that work with us, and I would say the law office has really been a true partner, even though they are named last in the list on the region plan for partners. So, thank you.
All right, well, is there any comments from my colleagues before we open the last public hearing? This will be the 5th or 6th public hearing. This is the 5th public hearing on Region 7. We'll now open the joint public hearing on Bills 8-24 and 9-24. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimony tool?
Yes, Madam Chair. We received 19 pieces of written testimony for Bill 824, and we received 16 pieces of testimony for Bill 924, which were shared with the council, posted to the website, and added to the record. I also wanted to make a brief statement in that Amendment Number 5 to Bill 824 from the April 15th meeting. While the bill number was correct and the amendment was correct and the description was correct, there was a typo of the title of the bill on the amendment, and it doesn't change the content of the bill or what happened to the passing of that amendment, but I just wanted to go ahead and note that typo for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. We did have individuals signed up in advance. I'll read their names 6 at a time, and they can come up to the table. I have David Gonzalez, Kay Jones, Stephanie Schulman, Dorothy Guy, Nancy Guy, and Ann Myers. Kay Jones, state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Marion K. Jones. I live at 1883 Lindamore Drive. Again today, the map for Bill 924 Amendment 5 Exhibit B is incorrect. At the April 15th meeting, prior to the council majority vote in favor of the amendment, the neighbor who lives in her home adjacent to the property being upzoned from R2 to SB objected to this incorrect map. In fact, 2 Willow Road, parcel 159, has R2 zoning on 2 adjacent sides, faces Willow Road, which has R2 zoning across the street. Only SB zoning on one side. There is not a vacant lot adjacent to parcel 159 as indicated on the map. I contacted Patrick Hughes with OPZ about the map line error, and fortunately he's having that corrected with tech support on the online map viewer. When presenting the amendment, Councilman Volke mentioned the property having been used for business at some points. Based on my research, it is currently only residential use. The house was built in 1940. In that 84 years, it has housed that business for less than 20 years. I appreciate District 6 Council Member Ravian respecting the concerns she heard from our community and ask other council members to vote against the amendment. Unfortunately, that did not occur. In the future, I hope your votes will be made with accurate information and respectful of local residents' requests. I live among many citizens who value clean waterways, and I can tell you, we want no more upzoning. We want to protect the Severn River and Weems Creek watersheds, along with our tributaries right there, Cove of Cork and Loose Creek. No more upzoning.
Thank you. Stephanie Schulman?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Schulman, 1846 Lindamore Drive. Since the last county council meeting, there have been a flurry of emails and even a meeting of concerned citizens representing individual and community concerns with regard to this legislation. The communities of Lindamore, Dreams Landing, Riverview, and Loose Creek, as well as citizens from Bestgate and Willow Road, to name a few, have come together. We have not reached a consensus of what the final plan should be for the Ridgely Corridor. Per the front page of the Capitol this morning, the city leaders are seeking a 60-day extension of time to refine their plan. We ask you to do the same. We want you to follow suit and extend the time to further study when it applies to the Ridgely corridor. While you have left the verbiage sector plan, there is no document detailing what that will be. Ridgely, Bestgate, Willow, and Dubois have always been both residential and small business. We ask that all the original zoning remain the same. The homes in this area are long-term, maybe even generationally owned. The county needs to take this into consideration prior to changing zoning on adjacent properties. I feel you have not listened intently to the wishes of the people of the neighboring communities. At our community meeting, many of us felt you have listened to the developer over your constituents. I asked the council to meet with the communities again and again and the individuals that would be directly impacted by your changes. I think that you've been gaslighted. And gaslighted means that you've been manipulated until you question your own perceptions of reality. You have been gaslighted by 4 property owners. You can see their dreams, and you now see their dreams as reality, and that is not true. Would upzoning of these properties ever have been an agenda item at all and discussed ad nauseum had not the developer bought these properties and wanted these changes? I ask the council to keep the original zoning of the properties of Ridgely Corridor. No more upzoning.
Thank you. Dorothy Guy.
Dorothy Guy, 605 North Bestgate Road. I second the comments that have been made before me this evening. I want to add again, no upzoning on the parcels in Ridgely Avenue and Weems Creek, no upzoning of the planned land uses. I request that you change and amend these bills before you take a vote on them. The 60-day extension is a wonderful idea to allow the time to do that. You need to go back and correct the Willow Road map at a minimum. You also should reconsider the upzoning from R2 to small business on 2 Willow Road and the unnamed property on Willow Road. OPZ sat here 3 weeks ago and took a very cowardly neutral on the requested change to those properties. That should never have happened. OPZ should have come in here and said, no upzoning on these properties. It's consistent, that position is consistent with our positions on requested upzoning on every other property in this area. That should have been their response 3 weeks ago, and your response to that response should have been no upzoning on the Willow Road properties. Again, I suggest that you go back, you redo that amendment, take it out of this bill, and then put the bills forward. I'm not happy with the sector plan either, as you know. To me, that's just an open door that the developers are going to try to walk through and redo comprehensive zoning for Ridgely Avenue in spite of whatever else this bill says. That's very unfair to the public. And Christina Pompa tonight, she thanked every government organization that had input into these plans. Did she ever thank all the people from the public who have shown up at every meeting and made comments on this? No, and that's because OPZ doesn't want to hear from the public. Thank you.
Ms. Guy. Yep.
Thank you. I, Nancy Guy, 605 Bestgate Road, oppose Bill 824-924 sector plan and any amendments that come with them. These plans only give way to developers and places the burden onto the taxpayers. These plans do not support the community's desire as single-family homes. Changing the zoning from SB or commercial will forever change the character, its landscape, its environment in a negative way. You will be destroying part of the neighborhood preservation area as well as destroying the watersheds of the Severn River, Weems Creek, Luke's Creek, and the Chesapeake Bay. I strongly oppose the upzoning of 2 Willow Road from R2 to SB and the unnumbered parcel on Willows Road and 617 to 623 Ridgely Avenue. In addition, the council must oppose the sector plan for the 2022 Master Water and Sewer Service Plan, which the county approved in Bill 53-22, June 6, 22, with an effective date of July 19, 2022. Clearly shows that the Ridgely Avenue has no public sewer service and none is planned or budgeted, and the city of Annapolis will not provide additional service. As a multi-generation owner, I ask that you protect the residents that have invested so much of their time and lives in the local area and who have chose to age in place. I urge the county members to do the right thing, support the residents with a no vote, or amend these bills tonight. Keep it residential, do not develop it. It is not warranted, nor is it needed. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ann Myers?
Hi, I'm Ann Myers, 606 Dreams Landing Way. I'm representing many homeowners from Dreams Landing, which is a community of 56 homes in the Ridgely Avenue and Weems Creek corridor. I have a list here of the names and addresses of the individuals I'm representing, which I will leave with you. We want to be on the record as adamantly opposing any upzoning in this area. As stated so many times, this is really a special, small, quiet, suburban, almost rural area with long-standing homeowners and properties to be respected and protected. It's not the right area for increased density. And in fact, it seems to many of us that for some reason, the council is trying to impose development here for some reason to make it work, like to push water uphill, so to speak, when it isn't appropriate here and there are better alternatives. This area doesn't have the appropriate infrastructure required to support increased density. We have narrow single-lane roads, no sidewalks, and in many cases, no shoulders. It's already very dicey for pedestrians in the area. Increased traffic would exacerbate the problem, as there's only one other way out of the whole community if something bad were ever to happen. There's only one way out when the Weems Creek Bridge is so frequently closed. In addition, we have beautiful land, mature trees, tree canopy, and Weems Creek to protect. Weems Creek is vulnerable and has been identified by the Severn River Association as a high priority site. Construction and increased population will only damage these precious resources. Most importantly, people don't want it. Stop.
Thank you. This panel is dismissed. I'll call the next 6 names. We have Julie Hens, James Kujoski, David Phipps, Art Held, Jennifer Bieberich, Chris Coleman. Julie, I have Hens?
Yes, good evening. My name is Julie Hentz from the Lindemore neighborhood. I moved here less than a year ago from North Potomac. The very thing that attracted me to purchase in this lovely neighborhood of Lindemore, as opposed to some of the other pretty neighborhoods in Annapolis but closer to town, was the natural environment. It's so close to town. It's wooded, deer, fox, a variety of birds. These are the things that truly raise home values, not restaurants and clinics. I've witnessed with interest this process of commercial encroachment of land on our side of Highway 50 on Ridgely, contrasted against homeowners' wishes for peace, the peace that only nature can bring, water and woods. The process has ignited a desire for us and a movement in our community to strengthen our force in numbers with the initiation to resurrect the Weems Creek Association so that we can speak with a single democratically established voice to protect what we hold dear. We say thank you to Ms. Rodvian and Mr. Smith for listening to our voices, representing our wishes. We were happy to see the language in Bill 824, Region 7, about community involvement, so thank you. Our community looks forward to being engaged at every juncture. Community that is made to step into our natural environment that we call home. We ask for full involvement in the sector plan, to be supplied with accurate and honest information, and be partners in protecting what we hold dear, as I said, and what's being proposed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Kujawski?
These do I push on? Okay, it goes on. My name is James Kujawski. I live on 5 Saunders Point Lane in Annapolis. I'm here in opposition of the proposed zoning change for Liberty Marina that would allow by right for Liberty Marina to be turned into a 185-room hotel, 3 restaurants, a banquet venue, and a pool that has been stated will be open to the public at no cost. Some of the arguments that were made were that it's consistent with the neighborhood. I mean, there's no 185-room hotel on the South River, and certainly nothing that's like Ocean City. This went through a hearing with a special exceptions and variance that was held by the Administrative Hearing Office on June 13th of 2023, and it was denied by the hearing office in July of 2023. It was appealed to the Board of Appeals and heard by the board in November and December of 2023. The board, which said it would take 60 days, has chosen not to issue a determination. It has intentionally refused to do so, presumably because there's a pending rezoning. Mr. Harvey Blonder and his entity owns Liberty Marina and submitted for rezoning to circumvent the special exception and variance process and to make an end-around run because they were denied. This project should go through the channels, and the Board of Appeals should be allowed to put forth their verdict as to if this makes sense for the area. The Administrative Hearing Office found that the proposed hotel, restaurants, and event venue was not appropriate for the property. They have not provided any data to demonstrate that the use will not have a detrimental impact on the traffic, which is a disaster on Route 2, the congestion, and the property values in the area. The Board of Appeals has intentionally stalled those decisions, which is unfounded and unfair to all the parties except the property owner, who's the developer. And I think that it should go through its normal process, and the Board of Appeals should have their chance to make a determination of whether this is good for Anne Arundel County.
Thank you. David Phipps?
My name is David Phipps, and I live at 2818 Solomons Island Road, and I'm here to support the Office of Planning and Zoning and the Small Area Plan's recommendations of Plan 24 as being consistent with them. Would be Mark Alstrom's property at 14 Old South River Road, Silver Star Service Center's property at 24 Old South River Road, a Stacy Brumfield at 12 Sunset, and the collective property owned by Gingerville Marine Centers 8, 10, 16 Sunset, and parcel 117 and parcel 123, and also for Yellowfin Restaurant owned by FNW Land Holdings as parcel 179 as part of the comprehensive rezoning, and that as a neighbor that I would like to see those be approved by this commission.
Thank you. Art Held? No. Are you Jennifer? How did I do with your last name? Bieberich?
Bieberich.
Bieberich. You have the floor.
Jennifer Held Bieberich, live at 31 Old South River Road. Here to oppose the change of zoning specifically to Liberty Marina, since we've already gone through the appeals process and have been sitting patiently waiting for that appeals to go through, which we're on 4 to 5 months now. And they had said for 60 days, and then they asked that they needed more time. So we kind of felt like we had fought that battle already, and we were just sitting waiting, and then all of a sudden have discovered that this zoning has come into this plan within the last couple months. So I'm basically here I'm a 3rd generation adjacent property owner and have built our forever home, so advocating for my children. So it would be a change in character to the neighborhood and the traffic congestion. I mean, that stands for itself. So, and I'm also opposing for 27 Old South River Road, Joan Richardson, another adjacent property. Thank you for your time.
Chris Coleman? No Chris Coleman? All right, well, this panel is dismissed. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward on bills 8-24 or 9-24, now is your opportunity. We have 6 seats. I'm going to start here with you, sir. State your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Joe Lorenzen, 1847 Lindemore Drive, Annapolis. As we saw earlier, Bill 624 to adopt the Region 2 plan went very smoothly, and I congratulate all of you for that. We are opposing, I'm joining the many that have come in the multiple meetings that were heavily contested and continue to be contested. It seems bills 824 and 924 are not ready yet. As required by the current Region 7 plan, the bills do not include the voice of the community, specifically with regard to the small strip of land along Ridgely that's surrounded by waters. I and all my neighbors oppose any further commercial upzoning that this bill as written will currently allow to progress. We were disappointed with the outcome the other day where there were two properties that were allowed to be commercially upzoned. Not really sure how that happened, but it did. This is continuing in the direction that is against what every local community member wants. The only thing I can say is stop the steal. This is our neighborhood, the waters. I personally pay every year to dredge the silt out of the Cove of Court that comes from the tributaries that drain directly off of Ridgely. We do not need any more commercial upzoning on that road. Rework this Region 7 plan. Take the time to do the things that you hear over and over from every community member that comes in here and as required by the Region 7 plan. Listen to the community. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Name is James Fagan. I go by JJ. Local realtor, been in Edgewater my whole life. I'm opposed to the Bill 924, where Mr. Blonder wants to build the 170 room hotel. He's saying that it's like what's going on in the neighborhood. I've been there my whole life. There is no other huge hotel. Just recently he, well, I'm not going to leave that alone. He wants to be like the Ocean City setup. All our I live in Edgewater Beach, Chestnut Hill, and I speak for the people in the community. Everybody's against this bill. We don't want to see a high rise there. There's enough traffic. The traffic on Route 2 right now is terrible, and he's saying it's consistent with the existing neighborhood. There's no other hotel around there like that, and I'm opposed to it.
Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Melanie Arena. I live at 1879 Loose Creek Drive. I'm here to oppose any upzoning on the Ridgely Avenue corridor. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but Mr. Volke, something you said kind of caught my attention when you were talking about Bill 624. You mentioned that OPZ and you all have come to this agreement and that you really listen to the people of that area. And that struck me because I can say that this area, every single road in the area off of Ridgely, I can name them all. It's, Lindemore, it's Loose Creek Drive, it's Loose Creek Court. All of us have been here. Dreams Landing. I mean, we've all come. We've all opposed the upzoning, and we kind of feel like we're at wit's end because we're your constituents, and we feel like every one of us has come and opposed it, and yet the votes are not going in our direction, and it just doesn't make sense. This is, how it's supposed to work, and it's just not. We're hitting this dead end, and everybody I talk to in the neighborhood is shaking their head. So I'm just here to let you know again, everyone in the neighborhood, everyone who's all of your constituents, a vote to upzone is a vote against this neighborhood. We are desperate for this, and we hope maybe you can give us that 60 days because we need to come up with something that we can all agree on. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
My name's Kevin Sullivan. I live at 7 Cumberland Court. I own several properties in this Ridgely Avenue area and Riverview Avenue. I've owned them for 35 years. I rode last week down through Ridgely Avenue, from the 500 block all the way to Bestgate Road. So I looked at all the properties, 513, 515, 517B, and 518 are unoccupied. Several of them have been unoccupied for 30 years. They're in very bad disrepair. 520 is already a corporate office, corporate headquarters. It's been one for 15 years. 605 is unoccupied. 600 is a medical center, a large medical building. Willow Road is Willow Road. Wellview Center is 613. 617 is an accounting office. 619 is a daycare, early learning center. 620 is the Sons and Daughters of Italy. 621 is Oaks Professional Center, another large building, professional building. 623 is empty. 638 is owned by EP Church. It's a home, but it's not, a family doesn't live there. It's owned by the church. The church also owns 642, which is empty, just an empty lot. 640 is a storage area. 645 and 647 are offices. This is Ridgely Avenue. DuBois Street, there's a pie factory back there. So it's already a business back there. North Bestgate, there's several empty lots.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Well done. Sir?
I'm Owen Smith. I'm 516 Riverview Court. I'm a father, husband, homeowner, conservationist, and voter, and this time I'm sticking to the remarks I've written down. As you can see, there's ample energy here for participation in the sector plan, which I'm really grateful is now a part of this. And I think you can be proud of the entire process because it has happened with all of this. And I know that a lot of this takes place without extra financing and capacity in your offices and at OPZ. And I felt that the process was done as earnestly as possible, with one exception. And I would say that that is this issue that you've seen before you on Willow Avenue today. You said we listened, not everybody gets what they want, and that's governing. I think sometimes telling powerful people what they don't want to hear is also leadership. And listening to the sophisticated and the interests in the neighborhood, it's a challenging thing. I understand there's a lot of pieces here, but as you can see, we've all had to learn about zoning, as you have now too. One of the things that as a neighborhood we haven't learned as much about yet is politics, right? We've seen, we're up against people whose full day is sometimes getting these things through, zoning changes and development. And we all have lives and children and other things to do. This process has made it as easy as possible, I think, for us to participate in the SAC process. And I think, again, you can be proud of that, but I understand we're also first out of the gate. And you're seeing partially here a legacy of some variances that happened when those initial office buildings went in. So I would also ask you that whenever you're dealing with variances or things like this, and a nose under the camel's tent, know that this is what's going to happen 10, 15 years later when it comes up again. Neighborhoods have a long memory, and I think this one particular, partially because of our proximity to other big things. And I'm sorry, I don't buy that a single person on a telephone, in a house with a kid's tire swing in front of it qualifies as that. I mean, renters who run commercial photography businesses and other things. I mean, Pasadena's up for a lot of variances too, and I hope that they won't take the opportunity to change any of the residential zoning in those neighborhoods.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mary Guy, 605 North Bestgate Road. I want to thank the County Council for putting forth amendments to remove all references to the Village Center from Bill 824. I I remain opposed to all upzoning in the Ridgely Avenue, Weems Creek area, despite what some members of the community may suggest. This is a vibrant and vital neighborhood, not a commercial or business district. Ridgely Avenue is a connector road, not an arterial road, and therefore does not legally qualify for additional development. As has been reiterated in testimony submitted by various parties, the Ridgely Avenue, Weems Creek area sits on a peninsula and is a fragile historic environmental area that must be preserved, conserved, and protected. In comparison to other areas within Region 7, which have had multiple meetings with OPZ, Ridgely Avenue, Weems Creek had one public meeting, and when additional meetings were requested, OPZ denied the request. And previously, OPZ agreed to no upzoning in Ridgely Avenue, Weems Creek area. I continue to remain opposed to the sector plan. As we know, it's an undefined process, does not provide a specific goal, has never been used by the county, and would require taxpayer funding. And OPZ has already said it has limited resources. Especially concerning is it does not specify the composition of the sector plan committee. Such a committee must be composed of individual residents and families who are committed to preserving the neighborhood environment and availability and adequacy of public services. Such a committee must not be composed of other stakeholders like developers, businesses, commercial entities, and others interested in the money, wealth, and flexing their political influence. That said, the county council must ensure all digital maps are accurate, up to date, and published in the Office of Planning and Zoning website. Ensure that OPZ publishes and makes readily available the Anne Arundel County Region Plan in its final form.
Thank you. This panel is dismissed. Anyone else in the audience that is ready to testify on bills 8-24 and 9-24 can come up now. We have 6 seats.
Am I it, last one?
I think you might be, sir. State your name and address for the record.
Thanks, appreciate it.
State your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Brian Ernest, 305 Edgewater Drive. I'm here in opposition of this bill, which encompasses a rezoning on the Liberty Marina lot. This has probably been the most controversial development proposal in a long time that had hundreds of constituents in the variance meeting that were opposing this, and no one shows up to those meetings, so I think you can understand how important that was. And this zoning change, which is buried in the 2040 plan, should be rightfully announced to the public before it's approved. Just today, constituents sent an email to Ms. Ledbetter, who forwarded it to Ms. Rodvian, and she had said not a single person had reached out in opposition to this, which shows that maybe it was not publicly announced appropriately. So all I do is I just want to propose that you guys hold a motion to hold this for at least one session, let every single person know what's going on here, and let's just wait on a vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, Louisa Daniel, 128 Island View Drive. I was inspired by my fellow constituents to come up and speak on the Liberty Marina proposal that's on the table, and I feel similarly that it is not in the character of the current developments in the area, and I would also appreciate it if it could be delayed so that there could be more conversation about the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I'm here to strongly oppose this bill, and to plead for any other options that you can come up with that will give us an opportunity to rectify some of the very serious problems that have occurred. Number one, I have told you before that there are a lot of people that I have spoken to since February 6th of 2023 who said, I never heard anything about this. What meeting? I've heard the words Plan 2040, but what the devil is it? I don't know. Do you know? Oh, well, it's only, 2 volumes, $110 a copy. Well, I didn't know who, and I only found 2 people who purchased it, both of whom are in the real estate business. So there is a very, very profound, deep, and just a terrible situation for people like you who say, where you try to represent the people. And the people did not have any notice. And you know me, that's going to be, you got to have notice. You haven't, it's a Fifth Amendment deal. You got to do that. Going quickly, I want to mention to you that Ms. Rodvian mentioned that it's important that we identify problems, and in order for the express purpose of helping the groups that are coming after us. Nobody made any announcement that, well, if you're concerned about the zoning history, there is a way to obtain it. There is a process, just like if you want to search the title of a property, you can also search the history of the zoning. And one of my things about the small business zoning, I've looked at this bill you guys did. I have a devil of a time distinguishing, well, what makes a bed and breakfast home small? Oh, Dad, burn.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Well, but what makes it different from a commercial one? And
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Oh, Ms.
This panel is dismissed. We'll now close the public hearing on bills 8-24 and 9-24. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of bill 8-24 and 9-24.
Bill number 824, an ordinance concerning General Development Plan, Region 7 Plan. Bill number 9-24, an ordinance concerning Comprehensive Zoning, Region 7.
We do have an amendment, a technical amendment to bill.
Okay.
Sorry, 8-24. Before I forget to do it, let's go ahead and get the technical amendment done. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 7 to bill 8-24.
Amendment number 7, this technical amendment corrects a charter citation.
Mr. Hunt, would you like to explain the amendment?
Certainly, this changes an A to a B to reference the correct provision of the county charter.
Is there a motion to adopt amendment number 7?
Rodvian, so moved.
Second.
Any questions? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on technical amendment number 7.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 the affirmative, none in the negative. The technical amendment number 7 to bill number 8-24 has been adopted.
Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you. So I'll start by saying I appreciate that everyone has come out to testify tonight, and for, what did we determine, this was the 5th? We've heard a lot of public testimony on the Region 7 plan, so I just want to start out by saying thank you for everyone that has contributed their thoughts in meetings and online and phone calls, et cetera. I want to start with, I'm a little concerned. I feel like there may be some confusion about what is actually happening in the Ridgely corridor in the final version of this plan. That in the whole region, there are exactly 2 parcels that have been rezoned from R2 to SB. Just to confirm, I'm not crazy, Ms. Pompa.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. That's correct. It was amendment number 5 to bill number 9.
Thank you. So there is not a massive rezoning in the Ridgely corridor. It is literally the 2 properties that were subject to the amendment, which I opposed. But I know my colleagues looked at, in fact, I talked to colleagues who drove by and felt it was a reasonable request, and they granted it. Other than that, there is no upzoning in the Ridgely Avenue corridor. None. So this idea that there's going to be all this upzoning, I don't understand where that's coming from, because it's simply not the case. Everything else stays. So that's what we've got with respect to upzoning on Ridgely. For those of you that have been following along with respect to the village overlay and then the sector plan, this was something that early on, a small number of constituents came forward and requested that I move references to the village overlay and sector plan. And so I brought forward that amendment. That amendment passed. We took out the references in the bill. And then subsequently, I started hearing from other residents who said, actually, we think the sector plan could be a useful tool to bring the community together to make decisions about the direction and the future of the Ridgely Avenue corridor. I personally always felt that that was the right path, that that was the best path, but when out of respect for the constituents that spoke to me first and having had no reason to feel that others were attached to it, I brought that amendment forward. When I heard that there were others that felt like a sector plan would be a useful process, I reversed my own amendment, and that was based on the feedback of members of the community. So I think that's where we're at with the Ridgely Avenue corridor. We have a sector plan. I do believe, my understanding is that it will involve all stakeholders, and that includes all residents, anyone who wants to participate. And again, I'm going to, turn to Ms. Pompa and say, anyone who wants to participate, attend meetings of the sector plan, provide feedback to the sector plan process, will be able to do so.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So that's where we stand with Ridgely Avenue corridor. I actually feel like we're in a good place, and I feel like, by and large, save the Willow Avenue properties, we have a result that very much reflects the wishes of the community. With respect to properties that are already developed, the surgical center, the medical center, some other things, we can't go back. I mean, I think you understand that. We can't go back in time and change decisions that were made 10 years ago. So that's where we're at. I hope others feel that we have reached a good result. I've worked my hardest to make sure that we came out to respect the wishes of the community and reach the needs of the larger community. We have discussed as part of this process the need for the county's need as a whole for additional housing. But we've also said in Region 7, that need is being met in the Parole Town Center master plan. And those are the areas around the current Parole Town Center, what we may see in the future of the Annapolis Mall, Bestgate Road, not North Bestgate Road, Bestgate Road, West, Outer West Street, General's Highway, and so on. So that's where we are. I am actually heartbroken about where we are with respect to the Liberty Marina issue. This puts me in an incredibly difficult position. I had not heard any feedback about Liberty Marina until this morning. And tonight is the night we have to take a final vote on this bill, an up or down vote. And the bill is not restricted to Liberty Marina. This is the entire Region 7, which covers the most populous parts of District 6. Basically everything from Bestgate Road all the way south down to the end of the peninsula. So if it's between the South River, the Severn River, all the way up to Bestgate Road, it's part of Region 7. So I'm really struggling with 11th hour concerns about the Liberty Marina. The constituent groups that have come forward to me, come forward and asked for my help and assistance, I've tried very hard to work with them. I also really struggle with the idea that there has been no public notice. We have meetings every 2 weeks. This bill was introduced February 5th. Every single meeting, every single time there's a public hearing, there is public notice. It's required in our code. And so that has been out there every single time. And that doesn't even include the pieces of the planning process that came before this bill was introduced to the county council. It went to the SAC, it went to the Planning Advisory Board, it went to the Office of Planning and Zoning. This has literally been in the works, say 2022 again, Ms. Pompa? We started taking feedback?
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. This applicant first applied in May of 2023.
But the overall plan process?
Yeah, the overall plan process really got underway in December of 2021 with the kickoff meeting of the SAC. But zoning really got underway, I would say, in the spring of last year.
Okay, so even then, we're still talking about roughly a year. Now, I understand folks feel like there should be something different in terms of notice, but you have to understand I represent a district of about 85,000 residents. I have no way of predicting what things are going to be flashpoints. And actually, as far as I knew, the neighboring community with respect to Liberty Marina was actually quite engaged. So the fact that, that I'm only hearing today is really alarming. And I'm not sure what we do as a council. I'm not sure what our options are, because we are required by state law and county law to pass a bill. And the idea that we can just kick this out 60 days is not allowed under our county law. This bill expires May 10th, which is, that's Friday? Friday. So I guess I'm sitting here completely caught off guard. Obviously, there's a sense that there are unaddressed concerns, but I would also like to state that, first off, what we vote on tonight is not approving any plan. Any plan that comes for any development plan that comes forward has to go through the development process. And for something like a large hotel and marina, that is not going to be a small process. For example, one of the biggest things, it will be the adequate public facilities. I've heard a lot of folks testify tonight, their concerns about the traffic on Route 2. So if the traffic on, if Route 2 cannot handle the traffic that would be created by a project like this, then either the property owner would have to mitigate. Probably, I don't know exactly what that would look like. I'm not a traffic expert. I don't think a high rise is allowed. That's not something I'd heard of before. I mean, I actually don't know that there was ever a proposal to be a high rise.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. So I'm stuck. I don't know what we do here. I'm gonna, oh good, she's coming back, right? Kelly Kenny, don't leave me now. So really, I would like to know what our legal options are because, we are bound by state and county law to pass a comprehensive plan and our comprehensive rezoning and our comprehensive plan is due every 10 years. Literally until, I'm not sure, maybe 9-10 o'clock this morning, we were sailing smooth to a vote tonight. And obviously there are concerns. I know you're caught off guard. What are our options here?
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. Well, since the bill expires, as you said, May 10th, your only option tonight is either vote the bill up or down. The other option would be you can't put a hold on this bill. I know there were some suggestions about a 60-day hold or something like that. You cannot put a hold on this bill. Another option would be to have the bill withdrawn and reintroduced.
It's
okay. Then you'd have to vote the bill.
Wait. Shh.
Thank you, Madam Administrative Officer. You cannot withdraw the bill. She has just corrected me, but you could vote the bill down, but then it'd have to be reintroduced in whatever fashion that you would like to, whatever properties you want to reconsider. That would put the whole region back on the table again, and you have to do everything over again.
I would love to hear feedback from my colleagues. Office of Planning and Zoning, to me that sounds completely unfair to the folks that have been engaged throughout the process, who have done months and months and months of work. Democracy is a two-way street. It requires citizens to be engaged, and it requires citizens to be engaged in a timely fashion. And coming on the day with concerns of the final vote is not timely. And I'm sorry, there has indeed been notice about this. It's been out there for months, and this proposal was out there for a year. So like I said, I would like to hear my colleagues' thoughts on I would love your thoughts.
Mr. Volke.
Every day in May is a legislative day, right? and we haven't hit our max of 45 legislative days scheduled out. Could we set a meeting for the 10th, amend it tonight, and bring the bill back for a final vote on the 10th?
No.
Is there enough time on the calendar? Yeah, what's the rule on advertising? And can we waive the advertising requirement? Because I think with 5 we can waive it. Just trying to help.
Sure. Ms. Ledbetter?
My question, I'm not sure who it is to. I am thinking one of the attorneys in the room. But what would be considered reasonable notice? Or can... I think that's the question as far as, I think that's the heart of the matter to Mr. Volke's suggestion, is that if we were to pursue that plan, we would need to have reasonable notice of the next meeting. I mean, today's Monday, it's Friday. Seems reasonable to me. I'm not the person, I'm not a lawyer.
So this is the first time this property has been mentioned during this entire process for Region 7. So I'm not exactly even sure what we're talking about. Does the administration have something to say about where we are with this particular property in the region plan?
Sure. Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. So we're talking about the Liberty Marina property, which is CZR7GRA019 in the change table that's online right now. The initial request came into our office on May 31, 2023, and it asked for heavy commercial zoning for the entire property south of Old South River Road. The applicant revised their application on August 19, 2023 to request a split zoning of MC, which is heavy commercial marina, and highway commercial, which is C4. OPZ recommended the split as requested by the applicant, and the Region 7 Stakeholder Advisory Committee supported OPZ's recommendation at their September 19, 2023 meeting. The split zoning request was reviewed by the Planning Advisory Board on October 19th and November 2, 2023 during their review process, and the PAB also supported OPZ's recommendation. We did not have opposition during these open public meetings, and therefore the recommendation went forward for a split zoning on this property of the MC and C4. And it's been in the bill the entire time since the February 5th introduction date. And the other thing is there was no sign required because obviously there wasn't an application to do any kind of amendment that requested a different zoning. So when the neighbors are talking about notification, maybe they would be talking about a sign on the property, but that was not required.
No, it went through the rezoning process. So it went through the full lengthy sign requirements are for properties that don't go through the full process.
Or they ask for something different than what they asked OPZ for. That's right.
And the rezoning process is really the more thorough vetting than what we get when we have an amendment considered here. I mean, because and I say that because it's reviewed by the SAC, which is, those are open, meetings open to the public with opportunity for public feedback. Also by the PAB, which I don't know I believe the public can't necessarily give feedback there, but it's
a public hearing.
It's a public hearing. Okay, thank you. And also was reviewed by the Office of Planning and Zoning. So it actually was thoroughly vetted, and there was opportunity in multiple places along the path for the public to comment.
Madam Chairman.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I don't necessarily, I know the OPZ, traditionally doesn't like these situations, but is spot zoning something that could be used in this instance, or no? I'm just curious. Well, I'm bringing it up. She said, look at options. I'm trying to think of options.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. So generally, when we talk about spot zoning, we talk about an application that goes to the administrative hearing officer. I don't know what the incentive is for the applicant to do that at this time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm throwing spaghetti out there to see which one sticks to the wall.
Mrs. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel for my colleague sitting next to me. We are about to begin public testimony on Region 4, the region, the district that I represent. I was just communicating with one of my colleagues. I'm literally having nightmares already that something like this is going to happen in my district because some group did not realize what has been transpiring for 2 years, and we will be at this moment in time on that piece of legislation. Having said that, I think we can all be in this position at this point in comprehensive rezoning, and it opens up a very tricky door for the legislative body and for the process. So I'm not landing in a position, but it kind of upends the process a little bit, and at some point we have to say we've allowed appropriate time. We have to take a vote on the bill. So,
Mr. Volke.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt or Ms. Kenny. Mr. Hunt as a reformed member of the Office of Law. Ms. Kenny as a member of the Office of Law. Correct me if I'm wrong. Spot zoning is illegal. We can't do that.
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. That's right. Spot zoning is illegal.
Spot zoning is illegal, so we can't do that. Have we figured out an answer to whether we could do a meeting on Friday?
And another thing to bring up, if there is, I know you all had just talked about doing an amendment tonight or at another time. If it needs a sign, obviously we've passed that time frame. Okay.
The only way that you could do it without a sign, this is a point of order, is if you went back to the existing zoning. Because under the way that the law is now, you could go back, you could revert to existing, and you would not need a sign. And you could act on that with less than the time required.
We would need to take an up or down vote on this bill, on these bills on Friday.
Mm-hmm. You could amend it tonight and then take an up or down on Friday. That's affirmative. If Ms. Schultz says that, I don't see anything in the rules that says you can't.
I'm supposed to give reasonable notice for meetings. I've already passed one deadline for one of the newspapers that we are required to publish in. I am able to still get into deadline by 10 a.m. tomorrow for the other advertisement if we do decide to hold a meeting.
So it's possible.
Well.
All right. I mean, you got a website.
This is to be fair, this is not fair to my colleague in District 6, who's worked incredibly hard to serve the constituents of her region, and OPZ, who's worked incredibly hard to get us to this point. And I don't know, as Ms. Fiedler stated, I don't know that my colleague can make a snap decision on where the zoning, what do you think is appropriate for this property? You haven't had any opportunity to, the other option, if you just left it at how it's currently zoned, is you're not serving the current property owner in a way that makes sense for the next decade. So this is tricky.
It is. May I?
You may.
I'll make a motion to recess until 9:30.
I got one quick comment.
Go ahead.
Before, can you, You've already done, I'm trying to think outside the box. You've already done overlays for Annapolis Town Center. Could an overlay impact, a future overlay bill impact that particular parcel or area?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Fiedler.
I know this wasn't directed towards me.
I'm throwing
Yeah.
spaghetti. I'm trying.
I'm catching the spaghetti. I don't know that I would be able to, that takes a lot of in-depth considerations that I don't think, I wouldn't expect my colleague to answer in 10 minutes. I appreciate that, but this is it's really tough. This is the thing that I think we all fear will happen when we were talking about the sign requirements. A lot of folks were opposed to us reducing the sign requirements, and they said, people are paying attention. If people don't know, then sorry, they're out. So we're getting now the opposite end of that, and this is tough. This is really tough. And I've sat next to Ms. Rodvian for this entire process, and she's worked very hard to communicate with the community and work on solutions, and this is an incredibly tough situation.
We have a motion to recess for 10 minutes. We good?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to take a recess until 10. This council's been seated for a while.
Thank you.
Comfort break. County Council is back in session here. As our final bills this evening, we are, just to remind everybody, have closed the public hearing on bills 824 and 924. We've amended 824 with a technical amendment, and we are prepared to move forward. Ms. Rodby.
Thank you. So I, spoke with some of the folks about the possible options. Is there a way we could sort of put together an amendment? There's no way we can do all of the mapping and technical language and whatnot to put an amendment together tonight, for us to vote on tonight. Well, I don't even know what that amendment would be anyway. It sounds like we can't create, public notice would not be sufficient for us to hold another meeting this week anyway before Friday, May 10th. So our only option here is to give the entire bill an up or down vote. And so unless my colleagues have anything else to add, I think that's where we're at.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on bill number 8-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 824 as amended has passed.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on bill number 9-24.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 924 as amended has passed.
Is there any other business any council member would like to bring before the county council at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. The county council is adjourned until May 13th, 2024, where we will host our first set of department budget presentations. Thank you and have a great night.